can get over that pass I just went through, I can handle anything. Once you see smoke pouring out of your brakes and you don't know where the bottom of the hill is, you get kind of worried. My first reaction was just, all right, let's just burn these trailer brakes to the ground, like if we need to. See the upslope on the other side of it, we're good. The only thing I'm really concerned about is the steep downgrade, and I don't know that there's any on this route. I mean, this is one of the reasons I wanted to come on this route, to avoid the grades and curves along that I think it's Pace in Arizona. 2 times I thought I was going to die in a semi-truck. One of them was on that route out there near Payson. One time was west of Denver. Both of them, I was hauling chemical hazmat totes. Liquid hazmat totes. Both of them I was in a van. I was pulling them in a van. I wasn't a new driver. I mean, I owned my own truck at that point. I was hooked up to one of Landstar's trailers. So the first time I was picking up, there's a load from Baytown to somewhere in Utah, up in the mountains in Utah. It wasn't Salt Lake. It was like you had to get off on some whatever little mountain trails to get up there. But anyways, between Baytown, Texas and where I was delivering in Utah, there's Colorado, and I'd gotten west of Denver, and I think it's called the Eisenhower Tunnel. There's a tunnel over there to keep people from having to climb up to the top of it and go over the top of the mountain, you know, because pretty steep climbing through there. So they built a tunnel through the mountain. Well, if you have hazmat, you can't go through that tunnel. And so when I got out there, I had to take the hazmat route, which the hazmat route, you do have to go over the top of the mountain. And it's not a very fun route. That was my first time on that route. Because you'd never go on that unless you're pulling hazmat through the area. You just, I don't think you'd ever choose to voluntarily do that. Unless you're in a four-wheeler, you're like, I don't know, there's maybe ski resorts up there. But on that path, you're kind of looking over the edge of a cliff, and you can't see the bottom of it, but you just know that if something happens, you blow a steer or you slide around on the road, or it wasn't winter time, but you just know if you go over that cliff, things aren't going to go too well. You don't know how far down it is, but so I was white knuckling it pretty much the whole way up and down that little trail, pass, whatever it's called. But made it through fine. I mean, I was being careful, trying not to do anything stupid. And so then I got to the other side where all the road, merged back in with the rest of traffic on 70. And that's really where I made the mistake. I didn't realize, I mean, I felt like I was up on that pass for like 2 hours, but maybe it was only like, between 15 and 30 minutes. I don't know how long I was up there, but it seemed like forever. Well, so in my mind, I thought I had gotten past all the bad downgrades on 70. I didn't realize where I was coming out on 70, and I hadn't gotten past all the bad downgrades. I'm not like a really crazy, I just want to fly down the mountain kind of driver, so I wasn't doing anything just really stupid. I just didn't get a low enough gear to start with. I mean, that's a pretty big problem. if you don't have a low enough gear, and I mean, I was confident. I felt like if I can get over that pass I just went through, I can handle anything. But yeah, got going too fast and just start seeing smoke pouring out of the brakes. And I'm in an area where I couldn't see the bottom. It looked like it was just going to keep kind of weaving, you know, left and right and just keep going down. I couldn't see where the bottom of it was. So I started to get worried. As you know, once you see smoke pouring out of your brakes and you don't know where the bottom of the hill is, you get kind of worried. And my first reaction was just, all right, let's save the truck brakes and let's just burn these trailer brakes to the ground, like if we need to. Nobody's ever told me to do that. Maybe that's really stupid. So don't take that as advice. But it wasn't my trailer, it was my truck. But irregardless if it was my trailer or not, I'm just thinking about surviving this downgrade and not having to end up in the sand and gravel, you know, in this emergency off-ramp. So I started using this thing here. I think it's called a treadle valve. It's what you use to just control if you just want to use your trailer brakes without your truck brakes, you just pull this down, and that's what I did. So I was still seeing a lot of smoke coming out of the trailer brakes, and that was slowing me down. You know, I could feel that slowing me down. So I'd do that. I'd get it to slow me down a little bit. I'd let off of it just for a little bit until I felt like I was, you know, going too fast again. Then I'd pull on the treadle valve again. And then the third time I would use the truck and the trailer brakes together. So I did that little cycle, I think 2 or 3 times, and it worked. I made it to the bottom. And I don't even think there was any, I mean, the brakes even the trailer brakes, I mean, they got hot, but they still worked. They still worked after that. So, and I actually had I did the same thing again, and it was the pass in the route you take through Payson. I think you start on 377 out past Gallup, New Mexico, then you head down to Payson, you come in. It lets you come into the Phoenix Metroplex from the like northeastern corner, and I really like that route. I just don't like this was the first time I was on that, and also it hazmat totes, but this time I had, so normally when you're pulling IBC liquid totes, it'll take like between 16 and 20 of them. I think normally I would have 18 of them to max your weight out, you know, depending on the chemical in there. But most of the time you're running more than 16 of them before you hit your max weight, and they'll organize them in like a 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, 2-1 fashion all the way from the front to the back of your trailer, or 2-1-1, 2-1-1, you know, just depends. This load down to Phoenix, I was pulling it out of Colorado Springs. It was a load of hazmat totes like I've never hauled before, or hadn't ever at that point, and never have since then either. But normally you just got a little cage built around the tote, you know, to keep it protected. These totes I had were solid stainless steel. Everything looked like it came out of a NASA laboratory. These things were, I don't even remember what the chemical was in there. I think it was some kind of like sulfur or sulfuric acid was in the chemical name, but I don't remember exactly what it was. But whatever it was extremely dense, because it took only 7 of those totes to completely, like, I was maxed out on my weight, you know. So they could only put 7, but they couldn't put an 8th one, or they would have, you know. And they didn't line these up in any 2-1, 2-1 or anything like that. They didn't even start them in the nose of the trailer. These things were so, like, it was such a concentrated weight, you know, in the trailer. They had to start them back past the nose of the trailer, and they were all singles, like 1, 1, 1, 1, all the way back. So 7 singles in a row. So you had 2 straps around the front, then you had 1 strap on every single other one of them, and then you had 2 straps around the back inside the van. I was trying to get over to Phoenix to get these things delivered, and I took that route, the 377 down towards Payson area, and man, I mean, it was really the same thing. I just started a grade that, I mean, they had a truck sign, you know, downgrade, but it wasn't like any extra flashing lights. It was just a normal sign, and it ended up being a lot longer downgrade than I anticipated. I ended up going through the same routine on that one. And I think I scared the driver. There was another, this is when I was with Landstar too, but there was another Landstar driver, and so he was behind me, and he's seeing smoke pour out of my brakes and everything. And but anyways, I did the same thing. I just used the trailer brakes to, you know, just to save my truck brakes. So if I got, I mean, I wasn't in the situation where it's like I'm in an emergency, like we got to do something now, but I wanted to have my truck brakes available if I got to that point. So I used my trailer brakes again to try to save my truck brakes, and I wasn't doing that until I saw smoke coming out of my brakes for like 2 or 3 times in a row of, you know, braking cycles, and I was like, all right, it's getting a little hot back there. So let's make them even more hot by taking their helpers away on the truck. But it worked again. You know, I did 2 cycles. You know, I slowed myself down a little bit. I let off of them, just like I would have if I was using the truck brakes. I'd slow myself down, and then the 3rd time I would just use the truck brakes. And anytime I used the truck brakes, I was getting into them. I was really trying to bring things down. You know, I was trying to drop, you know, 15 miles an hour off my speed when I was using the truck brakes. So, because they had been able to cool off for those cycles when I was using the trailer brakes alone. So, let me know in the comments if how stupid of an idea that is. I mean, it worked out for me twice. I don't know. It was just like a panic kind of human instinct kind of idea when you think you're about to take an emergency off ramp, or you think you're going off the side of a cliff. That was what popped into my head, was just, all right, let's try to keep our truck brakes healthy for as long as we possibly can, and then at least buy us some time to see more of the road ahead of us and just see what transpires.